Okay, we move on to Fauvism, to Henri Matisse. We leave Cubism with the idea of these multiple ways of doing things, one style better than the other. With Fauvism, we get the work of Henri Matisse, and we get this liberation of color, number one. So the breakthrough from Picasso to abstraction is really through space, through bodies in space, how he rethinks that. This one, definitely for Matisse, it's through color, what he does with color. His subject matter, unlike Picasso, his subject matter often is this kind of joy of life or joy of living. La joie de vivre, kind of like the joy of living itself. And it seems to be much more in sync with a historical golden age of Paradise Lost that is not the same as Picasso, who seems to be mooning the academy and trying to tear tradition down, dismantle it, so he can build his new modernity. But what you get with Matisse is much more rediscovering Paradise Lost, finding it again and having it live again, but for him it lives in the concept of pure painting. So pure painting is kind of Arcadian. You can find it, but it happens in painting itself. Pure painting means that whatever it is a picture of, it is first and foremost a painted surface with colors, lines, shapes, and forms. So for pure painting, he's interested in the expressive, not expressionistic, but expressive powers of how colors can sing and lines can dance. That's pure painting. So here we see his painting Joy of Life from 1905, 1906. Right at the moment the Faux are being discovered and named Faux, wild beasts of color. He's in love with the dome of a woman's hip. He loves that arc. He loves that. You can think of it as kind of an Art Nouveau's kind of flowing, linear flows of nature that he picks up on it, only for him, less is more. Get out everything that is unnecessary. Get it down to the essence. Remember, he says the beginnings of Fauvism is the courage to return to the purity of means. The courage to return to the purity of means. So forget all the flourishes and come down to these movements. And the trees in nature are in complete echo harmony with the human figure. That's what Arcadia was. No conflict. No conflict between the figure and nature. So all bonded together, a little shepherd and bonding with a flock. And yet the colors are riotous and expressive and joyful. So this is where he goes. Now, people saw it as an aberration. They saw it as color madness. They said, oh, my child could do this, or you got to go back to school. So he really had to stand his ground because these were considered scandalous paintings, especially in that autumn salon of 1905. So how do you date him? Think about dating him as a Faux to 1905 and taking him all the way up to like 1910. That's where he does the dance, which was in Joy of Life, that circle dance. So 1905 to 1910 would be a good date for him. I wouldn't think of him just as 1910 to 15. That's a little late, right? Because 1905 is when they became Faux. So locate him there. Two pictures of his wife, both considered scandalous. What makes these pictures expressive is not the expression on her face. What makes these pictures expressive is how he works the color, shapes, and forms. And he tends to work always toward trying to create harmony, toward trying to make harmony where you shouldn't be able to. Like to make harmony between green and red. They're complementary. One's cool, one's hot. And he finds a way to make them all coexist. That's really to make line and color work together, not making one more dominant than the other. To make something suggest space and suggest blackness. He's really, really good at these things. So there's really no oppositions. He finds a way for them all to work together. The blue nude is a good example of colors being liberated, a blue nude. She's also a kind of new earth goddess, very primal. He gives us a little twist where we are seeing her body from different kinds of views, but it's almost as if we travel over her body in different angles rather than seeing it analyzed the way a cubist would do. So you definitely want to think of how he differs from the cubist. You want to think of how he differs from the German expressionists. We have this work Lelouch's done in 1907, same time as Demoiselle, but very different in terms of how it connects and harmonizes with the past. So there's a different way to think about being modern, not always at the expense of the past, but certainly doing it in a way that is not traditional according to the rules of the academy. Notice it stacks space. It creates that spaciousness and goes up the picture plane. Now, he's getting at his most decorative, or his most kind of, he really knows what he's doing, let's say, with Fauvism by 1908, 1910. And you see him flooding the canvas in that time period. In works like this, The Dessert, where he floods it with the red, then he works the cool blue into it. He treats the window of nature. Nature in a Matisse becomes like a painting window. So everything becomes part of art. So think about that concept of pure painting and how he uses it in a very joyful way. The dance, he's really taken it down to its most minimal here, the simplest elements, just what is needed to tell the story, to turn the dance into linear rhythms. I think with him you get much more of a sense of the nude, something that has existed in the history of art for a long time being updated, rather than the naked, the self-conscious naked figure. They seem too much part of that pure paradise Arcadia where you can be nude in a non-self-conscious way. We move on from the dance to, seeing what all, I've taken out some things that I had you know, so following the list. The Red Studio floods the work. Once again, you see what comes to life in his world are paintings. Everything else is sort of secondary to pure painting. The piano lesson is a little different because it is such a picture of entrapment. It's not so organic. It's not so much the curving line that we're used to. It's not very decorative. And to make sense of it, we have to look at the date. We realize it's the war years. So the piano lesson, to be specific with that work, you would see it as probably happening during the war. And you should know those war years, 1914 to 1918. Then we jump to late Matisse, and you could just call it late Matisse, 20s and 30s. I'm not going to make you distinguish, just later Matisse. And you see him really expressing that easy armchair aesthetic. So go back to that quotation, what I am for is an art that is kind of relaxing and soothing, that is like an easy armchair to take away your stress. And how different a philosophy that is from German Expressionist angst or from Cubism's kind of deconstruction. Remember, in Cubism, think of analytic as deconstructive, think of synthetic and collage as reconstructive. All right, but here you can make the straight edge of her back go with the curves of the wallpaper. There's nothing you can't make go in sync. And in this work, I really wanted you to see the pink nude, how hard it is to be simple, how hard it is to get it all to work, how hard it is to make it look effortless. And that's what is behind his work. He never shows you the struggle. The Purple Road, beautiful picture of this idea of easy armchair art. And his final last works, very late style, and paper cutouts where he is perhaps at his most abstract, where it really is just color, shapes and forms that kind of tell the story in a really beautiful way. This became an artist's book. All right.